Hello, everyone. In addition to covering the OB chapter this week, we're going to introduce you to the 3M, now known as Solventum-encoder. Encoders are basically software that act as electronic code books and coding references. You'll find that it's a powerful tool for accurate and efficient coding. However, while encoders are helpful to streamline the process, it's important to understand their limitations and why you still need to use the code books. Some of the benefits of using an encoder, and again, 3M and Solventum is just one of several that are out there, include such things as speed and efficiency. They help guide you through the logical path to find the correct codes. They allow you to group in MSDRGs, spot codes that are HCCs, and other things. So instead of looking all these things up manually, they're right there in the encoder. The system also gives you guidance and prompts. So all those things in terms of laterality, coding to the highest degree of specificity, you don't have to be reliant on the book. It will prompt you to look for those. And also, the encoders have built-in edits, so this is hugely helpful. But like anything, it has a downside. Some of the downsides of using the encoder include the potential for errors. If you don't have sound fundamentals of coding, if you don't know how to find main terms, subterms, coding to the highest degree of specificity, the encoder isn't going to help. The encoder relies on decision trees, just like you do with coding from a book. If you pick the wrong pathway, you're going to get the wrong code, just like you do with ICD-10 CM code books. The other thing is it really diminishes people's critical thinking, almost like what a lot of people are talking about with AI. If we always have AI do our decision making for us and do our writing for us, we kind of lose a little bit of our writing skills. We lose some critical thinking skills, right? And it doesn't encourage people to bridge those knowledge gaps in terms of coding guidelines. You don't have to memorize them because it's right there in the encoder. And the other thing is sometimes they are not always comprehensive. A few years ago, I recall a hospital didn't have all their updates because, again, codes get updated every year, as we know, and they weren't all loaded. So people that solely relied on the encoders had some incorrect codes. So you still need to understand the code books. You still need to have code books if you're really serious about going into coding, even though they do get updated once a year. And the other thing is encoders don't teach you the guidelines. They don't teach you what main terms are. They don't teach you to look for things and follow the tabular. And in terms of exams and certifications, encoders will not be allowed to be used for either the CCS, the Certified Coding Specialist, or the Certified Coding Specialist Physician Office exams given by the American Health Information Management Association, known as AHIMA, or the CPC exam that's given by the American Academy of Professional Coders. So therefore, to sit for those exams, you still need code books. In addition, now with some things coming out about AI and autonomous coding that's starting to come about, coding is changing, and now coders are being asked to manually validate some of these things in terms of auditing to ensure correct coding and reimbursement. So again, there's no way to hide from using the code books. Below, you'll see some coding videos on how to use the 3M encoder. I hope you find them useful. Please let me know how you enjoy using the 3M and now known as Solventum encoder.